Hey darlings, welcome back to another video. I'm still trying to get used to like talking on camera in my normal voice, so these videos are going to be kind of awkward, but like as we go on, I'll show more of my personality and stuff. I'm just like trying to ease my way into this. Like it feels like I'm on camera for the first time. But anyways, that's not what you clicked on this video for. Today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favorite albums of 2024, so let's get straight into it. Okay, so coming in at number 10 is Radical Optimism. This was one of my favorite albums. I know it got a lot of flack this year. The media, by even consumers alike, like this album wasn't quite received well just because people felt like it wasn't really like an evolution or a step forward. Like they weren't necessarily saying that the album was like terrible, more so they didn't think that Dua, like had an evolution, I guess. And this album had a lot to live up to, especially because coming from like such a big album like Future Nostalgia. Like Future Nostalgia, I think is like the biggest album of this decade, or at least like the biggest female, or like it's somewhere up there, like somewhere up in like the biggest albums of this decade. I thought the production on this album was really good. Do I think it could have been more innovative? Yes, but I still enjoyed it. The lyricism, I like that it was like a story album. Like it kind of was, telling people like you can see optimism in every little thing that you do, and so I really liked that message. My top 3 favorite songs from this album would have to be These Walls, Houdini, and Happy For You. Okay, so moving on to number 9 is another album that got a lot of flack, but Dopamine by Normani. This album was definitely one of my favorite albums of the entire year. This is one of my favorite R&B albums of the entire year. I think Normani did an amazing job at creating an R&B masterpiece. I thought the production was like top tier. Like there are 0 skips on this album for me. She did include Wild Side on this album. I know a lot of people kind of found that weird. I didn't really mind it being on the album. I thought it was a pretty decent closer. But otherwise, then this album was amazing. Like I do want to give a shout out to, because my top 3 favorite songs are Lights On, Take My Time, and Insomnia. I really wanted to give shout out to Take My Time. Insomnia gets a lot of like that was like the song that got like the most kind of like coverage, I guess, from the album. But Take My Time is like my second favorite from this album, and like no one ever talks about it, but it's just such a fun little like kind of party song, kind of not like the vibe of the song is just it's so good. But I'm gonna stop rambling. Okay, and then coming in at number 8 is Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish. This album, if I'm being honest, because I want to be as honest and transparent on this channel, of course, but if I'm being honest, this isn't an album I listen to a whole lot, but the reason why it is high because Billie is so talented. I still kind of, like, if I'm being honest, I still don't really listen to Billie a lot. Like, she's not completely my artist, but I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that this album wasn't great. Like, the production, it felt like when I was listening to every single song, it felt like she really took days on just one song alone. Like it really felt like she took her time with this album. And this album was only like 10 tracks long, but it was like 44 minutes long. Like she actually made full-length songs, and I really appreciated that. Like I really appreciated her doing long songs, having bridges. We know that bridges are kind of non-existent now in music, and it's really annoying. But I love that she had like it just the songs felt full, and the album felt longer than 10 songs, but in a good way, of course. Like it felt really nice. But yeah, I think my favorites on this album have to definitely be Blue, obviously Birds of a Feather, and Wildflower. Alright, coming in at number 7 is Chromacopia from Tyler, the Creator. I think so. He's also another person I don't listen to a whole lot. This album I listen to decently often, but this album was definitely the most interesting and the most risk-taking production on this entire top 10 list. Like it took the most risk out of the whole top 10 that I have here. Like I thought Like he did a lot of experimental stuff in this album, and it worked in my opinion. Like he definitely did his thing, and I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of him for making a big impact on this year. And this album was just so amazing. My favorites on this album are definitely Darling I, Saint Chroma, and Sticky. Alright, coming in at number 6 is Trouble in Paradise from Chloe. I don't think anyone would have probably expected this to be on probably anybody's top 10, but this definitely was on mine's. I've been a fan of Chloe's for quite some time. I've been a fan of hers ever since kind of like Ungodly Hour came out in 2020. So I've known Chloe. I've known her, of course. Like I've known, you know, her music and stuff like that. And she did like everything I asked her to do, she did it on this album. I don't know if you guys listen to In Pieces, but I loved In Pieces personally. I know that album got a lot of like backlash and stuff. I liked that album, but I know a lot of people didn't. But this album is definitely like 5 steps ahead of that album. This album, like the production, everything was just on point. Her vocals like really shine, and I want to give a special shout out to, because even though this isn't in my top 3, but I wanted to give a shout out to Want Me featuring Halle. You know, this was an amazing song. It reminded me of Ungodly Hour, but like in the best way possible. Like their voices just belong together. Like that song stood out to me a lot in this album. This album definitely experimented with, like, I know this isn't like the specific genre, but like she had a lot of like tropical elements that remind me of like the Caribbean, or even like some African elements. Like she definitely added kind of elements to that. Like for example, like Never Let You Go, like that kind of had like that like tropical like like aspect to it. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it had that. Which is why I'm so mad that this album didn't chart. I'm really mad that it didn't chart anywhere. It didn't get like a big moment. I hope maybe like one of the songs will blow up on TikTok next year, and you know, but that's only a dream. But my favorite songs from this album are Temporarily Single, Somebody, and Favorite. Alright, now coming to the top 5. So number 5 is Megan. This album was my second favorite rap album of the entire year. I thought Megan did an amazing job with this project. Do I think that maybe some of the subject matter in the songs were repetitive? Yes. I can say that, but I thought the production was really good. This album felt very lighthearted. I know, like with Traumazine, it was a bit more darker, a bit more, you know, but this album felt a little bit more lighter. Not saying that lighter is always better, but like I kind of liked it. It kind of felt like a breath of fresh air. The second half of this album is definitely a lot better than the first. Like the second half shines a lot better than the first. This song, I mean, oh my god, can I speak? This album is, I think, like 18 tracks long. It could have been condensed to like 14 in my opinion, 12 or 14, honestly. But she had really great features. Like the features were really good on this album in my opinion. She had quite a few, but they all did their job. They did really good. My favorite features were definitely probably Victoria Monet with Spin, and then probably Accent with Glorilla. So that's probably my favorite collabs. But my favorite songs from this album definitely have to be Hiss. Shout out to Hiss, because that was one of the bigger moments of this year, not only just for Megan, but for pop culture in general. Like that song made headlines, let's just say that, and it made a few people mad. If you know, you know. And then Rattle and Spin, you know, which is, you know, by Victoria Monet. Alright, coming in at number 4, we do have Glorious. This was my favorite rap album of the entire year. This album was like, I just want to give a shout out to the subject matter, because she wasn't just talking about, you know, sex. She was actually talking about some real stuff on this album. Like, she was talking about, like, you know, domestic violence and like abuse and stuff like that. And I thought that was super important, because I feel like nowadays in music we don't really hear stuff like that. You know, it's always about like rap beefs or sex or drugs or whatever. But I do love that she talked about real shit on this album, if I'm being honest. And we haven't really heard like this kind of subject matter, I feel like, since like maybe the early 2000s in rap songs, you know. But Glorilla did an amazing, like, I feel like she did what a debut album is supposed to do. All right, my favorites from this album are Don't Deserve featuring Money Long, What You Know About Me featuring Sexy Red, and then I Love Her featuring T-Pain. Coming in at number 3 is Short and Sweet from Sabrina Carpenter. This was definitely one of the best and one of my favorite pop albums of this year. She did an amazing job. I just want to say that I'm so proud of how far she's come. I've been a fan for 3 years now, almost 4 years, and it's just been such a journey. Like, when I became a fan of her, she was only really known for like Girl Meets World and stuff, but like now she's actually like known as Sabrina Carpenter, like Sabrina Carpenter. Like, I remember I went to the emails tour, and I remember I was like, oh, I'm seeing Sabrina Carpenter, and people were like, who is that? But now, like, people know who she is, so it's like, you know. But I'm so proud of her and how far she's come. She did an amazing job with this album. This album was 0 skips. I like that she was able to be more mature in this album. Like, she was able to actually show more of like who Sabrina really is inside. So even though people do have a problem with that, I don't really have a problem with that. I think it's, you know, okay with me. But she did pop perfectly, and I definitely, there was a lot of like some R&B influences in this album. Like, there wasn't like a full R&B song, but there was definitely, I could feel some R&B moments in a few songs. Like I said, she did a really amazing job. I love the maturity. I love the humor on this album, and she's done an amazing job. And my favorite songs from this album definitely have to be Bad Chem. I love Don't Smile. Don't Smile is like such an underrated track. And I also love Juno as well. Coming in at number 2 is Access All Areas by Flo. Now, this album just came out about 3 weeks ago, so for it to be already number 2 for me really tells you something. When I tell you, like, everything down to like the vocal layering, everything down to like even just their individual singing voices, down to like the production, down to the melody, like down to the songwriting, like everything in this album was so perfect for me. This was my favorite R&B project of the entire year. They did so good, and for it to be my favorite coming out in November, which is almost the end of the year, it's just so, it's really telling that they did such an, like, when I tell you, like, even if you're not an R&B listener, I really recommend this album. Like, that's how good it is. I think everybody will find a gem in this album that they love. Like, this is such a good album. Like, they really did their thing. I don't want to say like they're, I don't want to really say like they're quote unquote like this generation's like Destiny's Child, but I do like that we are getting another R&B girl group in the mix, especially because I don't really remember like the last time we had like a full like R&B like, you know, girl group. You know what I'm saying? So they definitely do remind me a lot of like Destiny's Child. Like, this album had a lot of 90s R&B influences too. I could definitely tell, like 90s R&B, 90s 2000s R&B. So my favorite songs on this album are In My Bag featuring Flo, Triple A, and then I also loved Check as well. Check was a really good one for me too. All right, we are at the number 1 spot. So what album had the number 1 spot for me? So the number 1 album goes to Eternal Sunshine. When I tell you this is the best album of 2024, I mean it. Like, this was absolutely like it's like this album was so rich, down to the intro, down to Ordinary Things. Like, everything on this album was everything I could have asked for, honestly. She did so good. I love how personal she got in this album. I know Positions was a relatively happy album, but this one was a little bit more of like a sadder album. But she just like the emotions. I kind of like that she went a little bit softer in her vocals this album. Usually she's like doing a lot more, but this album she definitely chilled a little bit with the vocals, which adds to the chill vibe. Y'all know, well actually y'all don't know, but now you guys will know. But I'm mostly into like chiller music. I feel like I'm more into like kind of vibey music, if that makes sense. Obviously R&B is my favorite category of all time. I'm into like, you know, vibey beat music, you know, whatever. And she did exactly what she was supposed to do. Like everything was super perfect. I want to give a shout out to Ordinary Things. Ordinary Things was like literally, that was such a good album closer in my opinion. Like it's so hard to describe. I can't even speak right now. My top 3 from this album are definitely Supernatural, Bye, and Don't Want to Break Up Again. Alright, thank you guys so much for hearing me speak. I know I was rambling at the mouth. If you guys did enjoy this one, let me know if you enjoyed it. If you did not enjoy it, or if you wanted to, you know, if there was an album that you would have included in your top 10, comment everything down below, because I love reading them comments. And I'll see you guys later. Bye, darlings.